Yeah, a whole 6 months.
Yes, that's late.
Yes, yeah. I be trying to be on time. Hey
Mm-hmm.
everyone. So hopefully some people will come and if y'all can share it.
Oh,
Um
yeah.
it's changed so much that half the time I don't know how to do stuff. And have you all noticed that your Facebook feed doesn't like feed any longer on your phone? It's just steady, or is it just me?
I
Mine
had no.
just doesn't. It's just the same stuff all the time. So I don't even bother with doing anything most of the time on
Well,
Facebook.
I manually scroll. So
Man, on
Uh,
Facebook, I'm not even on Facebook that much anymore.
no, I mean, even when I'm saying, like, so when you go in, it's the first thing. And even if I manually scroll, it's the same stuff over and over again. It's not new stuff.
mm,
Oh,
So
can you? Is there a way that you can refresh the page or refresh it?
I used to just pull down on my screen because I have an iPhone and I would just pull it on my screen.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I see some people are coming on. Hello. Okay, so we'll jump in. Hey everyone, I'm Ifetayo. It feels like a long time. We were here last month, but it feels like it's been a long time.
Yeah,
I think it's been a long time since
a
all
lot
of
has
us have been here
happened.
together.
Yeah.
So we discussed Shirley, the Netflix series today. And so I just want to remind everybody who all are my amazing sister friends and colleagues that I have on with me. To my left is Dr. Kenja McCray. She is an assistant professor of history at Clayton State University. Right next Professor Nozibele Waithe, who is a professor of anthropology, and she's also the owner of Grand Tressa Hair Products. Underneath her is Reverend Estee Nena Dillard, who is the owner of Endless Spiritual Consulting. Is that how I say it? Oh, good. And then Sister Tani Chimurenga is always joining us from California. So she wakes up early to be able to have this conversation with us. And she is an author, she is a journalist, and she is also a social commentator. So, hey, sister friends, what's up with y'all?
hey.
Hey, y'all.
It feels like it's been forever. And then I know
Hey.
Corrie's coming today. So it's been forever since all six of us have been together. And I think this is a good place for us to start, is to talk about Shirley. So before we start, I want to show y'all something. One of the best, like, hands down, one of the best presents I ever got was on my 40th birthday. And an elder who always collected Essence magazine
Mm-hmm.
and gave me the entire 1972. That's the year I was born. And me and Sister Njamile, the entire series of Essence for 1972.
Did you just
So,
out Njamile? Did you out her age for the auditors?
sorry,
Wow.
I just outed myself. 72.
You told her this.
But I'm
Okay.
really doing something really special because this really has to do with Njamile too. Okay, so sorry, I didn't mean to out you like that. African people, we're proud as we get older, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So when I looked at Shirley, I remembered going through and looking through that 1972 series, and I remember the November, which my friend Kenja McCray was born in November 1972. So this is the cover of
Did it again.
that. It's the month after
Sure, just
mine,
put it
bro.
out there so my
Okay,
whole
sorry.
identity can be stolen
Who
too.
is that on the cover though? I can't see.
I don't know who this is. I don't know who it is on the cover. But there is an article about Shirley Chisholm. So she had just finished her run for president in here. And so I just read the article again because I read it when I first got the magazine, and then having stayed up until 2:00 in the morning last night and in the series. I was like, oh, now let me go back and look at the magazine and read the article and see what she was talking about. And the title of the article, because it's on the front cover, it says "The Unsinkable Shirley Chisholm, Black Politicians." And she's going in on the black men that did not, so the black male politicians that didn't support her run for president. And so yeah, it's an interesting article. I have that from 1972, the year that she ran. But I want to just kind of start off and just get a general sense. How many people knew, beyond the fact that we know that Shirley Chisholm was in Congress and that she ran for president, how many of us knew much about her beyond that? Well, Thandie, a journalist, so I know she knew something. Well, and a historian don't count. Okay, list the three of us. Them two don't count. Estee, oh, you knew something. What you know?
No, I didn't. I have so many questions. Yeah, it's me and you. I was up to 2 because I finished it and then I had all these questions. So I was trying to do all the reading last night because I was trying to find out who Ron Dillums was, and I was trying to figure out what was going on with these marriages and these relationships. I got questions, so I'm waiting. I'm a viewer. I'm a participant today because I'm really captivated by this story and the fact that I feel like I don't know, because I grew up in the most Black household that I knew as a child, and nobody was talking about her. Nobody was talking about these particular stories. Like, I knew that she had gone to Congress. I knew she had run for president. But beyond that, I feel like we know all types of details about King and Coretta and Medgar and like I knew no details.
And I actually didn't even realize that she was as big and that she had made as much of an impact as she did. So in my mind, it's like, okay, she ran, she was in Congress, she ran for president. People dismissed her run for presidency, but I didn't realize that there was the amount of momentum that she had, and she was respected in the way that she was. And so I'm the same way.
I didn't know she made it to the convention. I mean, I feel embarrassed, but I didn't know she made it to the convention. Like, I never saw pictures of that, or like the pictures I remember are the ones that were kind of iconic, even in the film, of like her at the press conferences or things like that. But I didn't know like she had delegates.
And she was those things I kind of knew. The things that I didn't know or didn't realize, even though I've heard her speak before, that she was Bayesian. I didn't know. I always just assumed she was a regular African-American woman. Even I just thought she talked proper. That was her thing. So I didn't know she was island born. And another thing, I didn't know that she had Mac skills like that she could pull Terrence Howard. That's the thing. I didn't know. No, I'm talking about her second marriage, so yeah.
Oh. Now, I definitely got questions. I definitely got questions about that.
I was wondering if we was gonna talk about that. I was like, "Ooh, are we going?" Because can I just
say, I knew it was on when he kept on sliding that McDonald's to her when she came home that time, and her husband, she was like, "Where's the food?" Her husband was like, "It's no food. It's in the freezer." She was like, "In the freezer. I got to cook it." And then next thing I know, he was sliding those plates. So I say something gonna happen between them.
He was like, he was so protective of her. Like, she's eating. Leave her alone. You can't eat and talk at the same time. And then when Barbara Lee busted in the room, he's like, "I told her you were having lunch." Okay, what, bruh? Calm down. What?
With the styrofoam container, and like, sit here. And I was like, oh, I'd have been surprised.
I thought it was that he believed in her. Like, it seemed like from the beginning that he believed in her. Like that there seems to be
Oshun would say that. Anyway, go ahead, finish, Estee.
I'm sorry.
Mommy,
Can't
oh, she's
believe
so
the
naughty.
thought of her.
So naughty. So naughty, mommy. So naughty.
I don't even remember.
But you know what though? Okay, so it's Hollywood. It's what's the word? It's a fiction based on a true story, fictional account, but you know, they try to get it as close to the original as possible. She gets elected in 68, and from 68 on, it's like her stature, dare I say her power begins to grow. Um and she's married by the time she gets elected, I guess in 68, she's been going on being married 20 years. So it's not like he didn't know who he married. And he hung in there at least until 77. So the character, the portrayal of her husband, and I don't know who this actor is, he seemed like a very supportive husband until he just couldn't, whatever was the reason it broke, it broke. And then you had the brother who had been part of her political campaign, the Terrence Howard character, who swoops in, according to articles, not that long after the final divorce. But we also see him as someone who has been supportive of her all this time. That's something that I did not know about, but I appreciate, because just like we didn't always hear about Fannie Lou Hamer's husband, but she had a husband and he was right there every step of the way, very supportive of her. Ida B. Wells's husband, Ferdinand Barnett, very supportive, had her back every step of the way, encouraging her to do the work that she was born to do. So I appreciate these portrayals of some of these supportive husbands, even though in this particular one, like I say, he took it until he couldn't take it no more. And you know that sometime I'm not trying to comment on her marriage. I don't know nothing about it, but from a viewer standpoint, yeah, sometimes it can be rough for brothers to be second fiddle to the wife. So, but I appreciated the portrayal. Hey, Corrie.
Hey, Corrie.
What's up? No, and that's a good point for me to come in on, because that's one of the things that I always want to know, that these women warriors were loved, often by men, sometimes by women. I mean, and I think that to the point, she gets married again to Arthur, right? Like, and is married to him until he dies. Like, and the same with, Harriet Tubman. All of these people are partnered and married, and it does not stop them from being the people that they are. And I think that's an important thing for women, because it's oftentimes it's like, oh, we're the most difficult to be partnered if we're involved in any kind of social justice or liberatory work. Oh, that means you're just gonna be by yourself. But I feel like there is that whole narrative that this helps us overcome.
I mean, I do think that I agree, and so I was happy to see that she had a husband that like he was supportive. And I don't necessarily want us to jump into this now. Maybe we can talk about it later. I was curious about the portrayal of the interaction between her and her husband, and then at the end to read, she got a divorce, and at the end of the year, she was remarried. As a psychologist, obviously that brings up questions. I just think it's common sense to me that just brings up questions. I was like, oh, okay, that seemed fun. So, and maybe, okay, let me be transparent. I wondered for myself when I read that, I was like, is that something that we should talk about as a critique of her? Because obviously something must have been there, because you don't just decide to marry somebody after you get a divorce in a quick second. And, if I don't say something, am I being a hypocrite? And if I do say something, does that take away from her work? And so I did have that kind of conversation in my head, because I realized, like, okay, that's interesting.
Did you see her second husband? He's handsome. I was like, Conrad was handsome too, but I'm looking here. I'm gonna try to drop a picture in the chat because he's a good-looking man. I felt like I would be like, "You want to get married? Okay, that's what we about to."
I thought it was a little time before she jumped into the marriage. I thought it was
no. She divorced at the beginning of the year. By the end of the year, she was married again.
Oh wow!
I think the question I had was more like, do we have context? And I mean context in this way, because yes, now the divorce and the marriage were close together. They were months apart. Like, I don't even think it was like a December, January kind of thing. It was some months apart. But you know how we do, right? Like, we separated, we broke up, but we haven't filed paperwork. Like, I don't know. I just feel like, is there context? I just wonder what the nuance could or could not have been. You know what I mean? But I do think talking about love and relationships and how that plays a part in all of this, because it's obvious that the people that navigated this campaign with her did that because they loved her, whether it was her mentor, whether it was because it was Arthur and he already kind of had something there, because it's her husband. Like, those were the only Black men that supported her, that loved her as a person. So I think it's important to talk about, but I do wonder I wonder what happened. And I feel like the other thing that it raises for me too, though, is I think for any of us, for Black folks, it still looks away. And what happens when all we have is the way that it looks? Because I think that's I think that's a valid critique.
Well, I think because it is.
I think the thing that was great about. Go ahead.
Well, like we say, so many of us don't know about Shirley Chisholm and the historic run and her history and her impact. Because we don't know any of those things, we're also not going to know about the context at the time, unless maybe kind of sort of we lived in New York, Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy. We're not going to know anything about the context of her relationships with those particular men. And I think that speaks to the larger point of not enough of us understanding the impact that she made. I understand the impact that she made. I don't necessarily agree with her politics, but the impact that she made, and there's like this silence or glossing over her unless you already knew about her. And then I'm not sure if the sister, you have to forgive me, I should know, but I don't know. I don't know if it was Shola Lynch or who. Someone came out, the filmmaker, sister filmmaker, who came out with the film Unbought and Unbossed, which was like reintroducing her to a new generation. And then now we have Regina King and her sister as part of this project with the Netflix biopic on Shirley Chisholm. So it's like a reintroduction of her to us again, to look at the impact that she had and the issues it brings up, because the sexism is off the chain.
Yeah.
Like, wow, damn, really?
And that's what I wanted to say. What I wanted to say is that in addition to the questions that you raised, Estee and Thandi, we also have to look at the time frame, and maybe Dr. McCray will jump in terms of the politics that was going on. I think a lot of the relationships has to do with patriarchy and the uncomfortability that men had during that time about women asserting themselves and roles changing. And, I think some men are more aware of patriarchy, and they're able to kind of like back themselves away from it to let a woman shine and still feel like they can be masculine and it's like not a threat. So maybe that was what her second husband was, somebody who really says, okay, I'm going to try to work, with the sexism and work with this and really support you and not need the limelight. Because when she ended up, her husband coming in and he was like, yeah, it's all about you. You doing this and you doing that. And then they showed the next frame where she's giving him an interview, right? To me, that was a way of, a woman have to step back and kind of make herself a little small because of the uncomfortability that her husband was having in the relationship, her not having, the same type of level, and if you get back to the scene when they were arguing about the money, right? And she said that, it's my money, right? How you going to tell me what to do with my money? And the way that he took, you can look at all those dynamics that's playing on. So I think that has a lot to do with it too. And, and some people who were born in the island, in terms of their gender roles and respectability, because that was also hinted at, that they were thinking that she wasn't being a proper woman, right? By engaging in the things that she was. So I think, I'm not a historian, so somebody may need to expound on that a little bit.
I have a question. Do you know that was how that interview came about?
I don't know, but I'm just taking, it's like maybe a fictionalized thing,
Okay.
of course it's a fictionalized account, but I can see something like that happening.
Yeah.
You know
Because
what
I
I mean?
honestly made the opposite assumption. I made the assumption that probably to make her more palatable for
Yeah.
voters, that they needed to see that she was married. So I
Right.
actually thought it wasn't about him at all. I thought the interview was about her, which is why I was like, oh, is there some information that I don't have? Because
And I should know that, but I didn't check on it, so I can't answer your question.
yeah, because I thought it kind of went, to me, it went with the arc of the conversation, of the arc of the story, where like they wanted to interview her family, which I think is kind of what happens with women, is like there's far much more skepticism if a woman is single or if a woman is estranged from her husband than if she's married and attached and appears to be so.
And don't forget, if she can't, quote unquote, control his proclivities, like they said about Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. So there were a few things I wanted to, I guess, us to think about. One thing is, I think it's important not to put Chisholm and her experience and her, like Thandi said, impact in the dichotomous patriarchy, feminist, anti-feminist, patriarchal, feminist, the boxes. Because I listened and read a bit about Shirley Chisholm, I guess initially along with my budding interest in African American history when I was younger. But then when Clinton was running, Hillary Clinton, I noticed there was a lot of attention given to, or a fair amount of attention given to Shirley Chisholm as somebody who paved the way for Hillary Clinton. In reminding people she's not the first woman to run for the endorsement of the Democratic Party for the presidential candidacy. And then when, like Thandi said, when Unbossed came out, the documentary, I looked at it. And then remember, I'm writing about Black nationalism, in particular, Congress of African People to a certain extent. And they were some of the center pieces of, they were some of the key workers that brought about the National Black Political Convention of 1972. So I'm reading a lot. Oh, and the East. Well, Congress of African People could have at some point kind of encompassed the East, but the East is in Brooklyn. So I'm reading these East newspapers, Black News. Yeah. And so, like the opinions about Shirley Chisholm are copious. and very complicated. And they do not neatly fall in the patriarchy, feminist, or, womanist, anti-feminist camps. So, Nozibele, you have me thinking when you got my mind turning when you said I thought she was a regular black woman. And I would love for us to discuss that, what it means to be a regular black woman, because I would want you to explain yourself. I wouldn't want people to be like, well, there's another ADOS. She probably an ADOS supporter, right? Because it did, you got to flesh that out and nuance it. And I would like for us to have a conversation, putting that part of our thinking, or at least Nozibele's thinking, in conversation with this, going to the hospital and forgiving George Wallace, because there could have been ad hominem attacks on her because she did things like that. And maybe people felt she didn't truly understand the quote unquote regular black experience, being from an immigrant family and living in a very diverse Brooklyn, right? Because clearly George Wallace, I can't say I would have visited his bedside unless I had, something to hurry along his. Never mind. So
Help him out, huh? Help him along. I know that's right.
All right, Miss Alabama.
But you know what, though? Let me jump in real quick, because when I think about the whole sexism, patriarchy, feminism thing, I wasn't thinking about it necessarily in terms of the the Gary Convention crew, who she basically she did dismiss them as men. But I looked at it more as what the Congressional Black Caucus, those men did to her in terms of their betrayal. So, like the one brother, I mean, it's fictional, it's a portrayal, but I'm just saying, like the brother in the Panther office, when he finds out she goes to visit Walt, he's like, damn, I thought she was black. It's like, but the Panthers still endorse her. So you have like that leftist strain of the black community that may have supported her, but where the patriarchy and the anti-feminism comes in, it comes in from these petty bourgeois Negroes, the, the already elected Negro politicians. So,
Yeah,
and
and
there was another dimension of them feeling as if she was an outsider who didn't have enough seniority to even have the uterus, right, to make the
overly,
bid. They
the
felt
overly,
like she needed to stand in line,
mm-hmm,
and it was very complicated.
mm-hmm.
yeah, and I think when I was talking about patriarchy, I wasn't talking about putting her in a camp specifically. I'm just saying that that was the climate and the environment that she was in during the time. So I'm not trying to say let's put Shirley Chisholm in a box, but I'm saying that those are some of the things that she had to contend with. She had to contend with, and we all still do, right? We have to contend with racism, sexism, and how that impacted her in those ways. And what I meant when I said, I guess, a regular black woman, we all are African women, right? Diasporic African women. But what
Mm-hmm.
I said, I assumed that she was African American,
Mm-hmm.
right?
She
And I
was.
assumed,
So
well, she
yeah,
said
let's dig
that,
down on that. It's
well, she
important when we're
said
having
that
a
at
yeah.
some point, she still
Born in
had
a
a Bayesian status, I thought. And so she considered herself like not Afro Bayesian, or something I read. So it wasn't
Barbadian
that she
American.
was saying, yeah, it wasn't that she was saying I'm completely African American. She still acknowledged and recognized her Bayesian roots. So that's what I'm saying. I didn't know. And as far as what I meant in terms of that, additionally, is that even though she said that, or you said that she read some accounts that she considered identify as an African American woman, her history is Afro Guyanese, I think, and Afro Bayesian. So both her parents aren't born in the United States, right? So she has a different history and legacy than an African American. And that's all I was saying. I thought that she had the same trajectory as, other African Americans. So.
But
So
I
I
mean, that
wanted,
begs the question about a lot of people who are politically active. I mean, a lot of them did not have both African American parents. And I feel like that is one of the things I think, because I'm like, girl, why are you running? I'm with everybody else. I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, well, just go do something else.
Why are
But
you
I feel
running?
like that is right. I'm like, you just gonna get just bothered. And people are just, racist, sexist, combined. It's just gonna be an uphill battle. However, I do think that she has the kind of belief in America that a lot of people who come from immigrant families do have. Like, they want to hold America to be better than it has ever been. And that is partly because they come from a sense where, like, oh, you came here hoping for all these other kind of things. Conrad, from Jamaica, her husband, like even parts of my family who, my cousins, their mother is from Jamaica. They call themselves Jamaican, even though they have a parent that's from South Carolina, right? So it is one of those kind of things, but I do recognize that they come with this kind of sense, that kind of joke about Jamaicans or people from the Caribbean, having 15 jobs, working really hard. But they really believe that if you come to this country and put in the effort, you can have this, scale all of this, heights. So, I mean, she really believed, like, I'm about to be president and fix the problems. Like, that is what we do. Like, I'm going to show up with my hardworking self. I'm a teacher. Like, come in here and get everybody together, right? Because that's what I do. And yeah, and so I do feel like if you look into the backgrounds of a lot of people who are activists and those kind of things, you'll find either they were from the South, like from, Mississippi or Alabama or South Carolina and moved up to New York, or their parents were from somewhere else. And then they came there on a mission. So.
yeah, and I've noticed that. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. And then
Yeah,
I'll go
I
after
think
you.
that some of those elements we need to talk about, because when during election times for national elections, the presidential elections, it comes out. And those schisms in the United States and in the Black community show more. We have those conversations more of who's a real African American, who is not, who understands real African Americans and can speak for them, and who can't. And like Corrie was saying, who, you know, there's a little bit of model minority attitude and reading perceptions going on, and all of that factored into whether certain people accepted her, in addition to the patriarchy, in addition to the anti-woman, misogyny,
Well,
right?
are we sure? Because
I'm sure.
are we looking? No, seriously, are we looking at Shirley Chisholm 1972 with 2024 eyes and the addition of the ADOS filter? Because she's talked about it, that statement she made. She said, "I'm black. I am black, and I'm proud of my blackness." She knew she was a black woman.
Exactly.
It may have been an immigrant or Caribbean um, community, but it's in Bed-Stuy, do or die Bed-Stuy.
And I
So
think that that's important for us to look, but I can see both of your points. I can see your point, Tandi, of like we maybe look at this from like this kind of precedent that in Jamila,
just maybe.
you talk about it because it seems to me that she's clear. I'm Bayesian American, but I'm black and
Yeah.
I'm connected to this black community that is very multicultural. At the same time, I did wonder about that decision to go see George Wallace, and I can I feel like I can relate to that because I met a guy, a Panamanian guy, and for all intents and purposes, the way he talks and everything, he sounds like an African American because he came here when he was very young. And I remember us going out, and somehow he tells me that he was dealing with Republicans, and I was like, "You don't vote for them?" I was so shocked. And he the work that he does is all within the Black community. I mean, he services the Black community, and he did that kind of pat response of like, "Oh, you guys are always voting for Democrats and stuff like that." And he had these lots of assumptions about how me as an African American, and how we respond to voting, which he didn't ask me any questions. He made assumptions. And I remember thinking, which I didn't say to him, but I remember thinking, you're in this entirely Black community. If these regular ass Black people knew that you was voting for Republicans, they would not support your establishment. There's no way in hell that they would do that. And I don't even think
that.
Yeah, because I think at some level he knew that. So I don't think that he was advertising. Like, I don't think that's something that he advertised to his customers. Because I think he would know the impact of that. But then I also thought to myself, you can do that because the way that he was perceiving me as someone that votes, and the way that he was perceiving his decisions, I came from that immigrant, I'm going to achieve the American dream. And it wasn't thinking things in a complex, nuanced way, which you and I all think about. So that was the one thing that I was going to say. Other quick thing, I felt proud as I was watching this video of Shirley Chisholm. At the same time, I'm going to admit, and y'all gonna take my womanist card. So
I know what you're gonna say.
She got an ego. I was reading the article, and I don't know, would I criticize her if she was a man doing that? I probably would. I could see where people would be like, I'm not really feeling her because she's not really listening. I could see it in the article that I read. I could see it. I watched a couple of videos this morning. And I saw it in the film, and I was like, I can see why people may simply just not like Shirley Chisholm.
No, I don't take your womanist card. I had the same reaction, especially when I dug more. And she wouldn't listen. And I think I just generally don't prefer people who don't know how to listen. Because I think just as a human being, it helps to have some ability to navigate what's happening around you. And I really felt like that going to see George Wallace thing for me, it kind of doubled down on that of like, if she got an idea, she felt like her idea was right because it was hers. And it almost kind of makes me think about there's a proverb in Ifetayo that says a knife can't cut its own bottom, right? It's like you can be the sharpest tool in the shed, but you can't always see the thing that you need to be able to achieve what you need. And if you aren't aware enough and have the humility and the ability to say, okay, I might be the smartest person in the room, but I have other smart people in the room that can see what's behind my back, then, like, how much more strategic could it have been if she would have listened? So I think the ego part came across to me too. And to me, I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. So I don't think that means that she should have been treated the way she was. I don't think that means she should have been betrayed. I don't think that means that like, it should have come to bear in the way that it did, and it could have still been more successful than it was because of the BS that other people did, also particularly Black men. I think the other thing for me that really showed that, honestly, Ifetayo, was the family relationship being broken. When your sister don't with you, something wrong. And I mean, and I have all types of complicated relationships with my family because family is complicated. But there was a level of breakdown in that relationship that extended far beyond, I think a parent favored you more than me, and like to be busy and in the community, and I'm the one at home with mama. Like it was, and the more I looked into it, that seemed to, while fictional, it seemed to resonate with some truth. And her family didn't speak for her, and so for me, Black, Bayesian, Guyanese, African, Southern, wherever you from, if you Black and if you can't go home, there's a foundational.
Wait.
This,
What
You can't go.
what was that outtake? What was that outtake?
I want to connect one thing to that. And that goes back to, I want to connect what you just said to the way that she was talking to her husband. Now, I know earlier the conversation was like, well, this her money, and then maybe he was not feeling as
we
comfortable.
didn't say that because I didn't agree with that.
I think she was talking out the left side of her mouth to that man.
Yeah,
and I'm
too. Because she said all of her, who was paying the rent though? Was it like all of this is my money after we together pay the bills? It seemed like, I don't know, I would have to research it, but it seemed like she was like, Conrad, you pay the bills, you put the food in the refrigerator, what I make is my money. And that's how it sounded, because it was I think the dollar figure, wasn't it? Is it 32.5 or 42.5?
Yeah, something like that.
30,000 is what she needed at that time. Yeah.
But what did she make?
42.5. Her salary was 42.5. I don't know what he made.
42.5. But Estee, I think also because the film kind of hinted at this, is that the whole respectability politics things was at play. Her being out there, especially from a family like that, an island family, she's not being a respectable woman by running for an office that's considered male, that maybe the dealings that she had with other people always meeting with these. So it could be a lot of things that were at play that kind of made their family distance themselves from her. But it was another thing that made me think about it, because I told my mom, to kind of let you see that Shirley Chisholm was an acquired taste. I was talking to my mom and I was like, oh yeah, I'm about to watch this Shirley Chisholm video. You want to watch it with me? She was like, I lived through that. And I have my opinions on that lady. I don't have to watch it again. I'll talk to you later. And I was like, that's it? So I said, I'm going to have to circle back to her to see why she said those things. I just thought that, she was like, nah. So I'm going to circle back with her to kind of see what she thought and what she remembered about the whole thing. But she was just like really not feeling that. Anybody else, she'd be like, oh, Harriet Tubman, I watched this thing, I watched that. And, she was not feeling that.
Yeah, I thought my parents, like when you say, oh, you remember Shirley Chisholm? They're like, yeah. And they move on. There's some distance there. And Ifetayo, you said something to me and I wanted you to talk about this. And I want to say, Thandi, I want to be clear. I'm not saying that simply that Shirley Chisholm thought of herself as a model minority. I'm just saying we know in hindsight that this model exists, this ideology or whatever exists, this ideal, this archetype. And whether she thought of herself that way or whether other people, that's what I was thinking, other politicians, particularly Black politicians that had come up through the ranks of, we just got, this is 72, 7 years ago, we just got the Voting Rights Act. And we were doing a lot before that, and out of nowhere comes Shirley Chisholm. It feels like to them, right? And it's gonna bypass the whole Southern coalition. But Ifetayo, you said how it came to you, also how you realize a lot of Black people don't trust you if you don't have a certain educational provenance. Can you speak to that? Do you remember saying that? And you're like, huh?
Provenance.
I'm just saying, she didn't say it like that. She was just like, she picked something up being from California.
Yeah, so okay, so So growing up, the only HBCU that my grandfather went to HBCU, so I had heard of that. Like in school, the only one that you would ever hear about was Howard University, and there was lots of, I don't know if you had this experience, Tandi. There was lots of like negative stereotypes about HBCUs. But when I came to the South, one of the things that I realized is what she's talking about is like lots of times people don't trust you if you don't go to a HBCU. So is that what you're talking about when we had
Yeah,
that
like
conversation?
they
Yeah.
look at the resume. It's 72. It's 1972, right? In 1965, we just got a law, like instated saying if you're a college or university and receive federal funds, you can't be out here discriminating against these African descended people, right? Or, people of color. It's 7 years. And then we look at, we in Alabama and we look at the schools that she went to in New York. Yes, they're in New York. Yes, they're in her neighborhood. But let me tell you, 5 years ago, some of my family members were like, Princeton, where's that? Columbia, I've heard of that. Is that well, why she didn't go to Alabama if she was trying to go to an integrated school? Like, why she didn't go to a lot of us haven't heard of that. So they're like, who's this woman? And so that is at play at how people are perceiving her too, whether or not she perceives herself as a model minority.
Mm.
Well, and that okay, and go to that, and Corrie, go after this. The other thing, and this is from the article, not from the movie, but then she's not connected. She's not in a sorority, which is big at that time. So she hasn't gone to a HBCU. She's not in a sorority.
Is she? I thought I
It is.
read where she was.
I
Was
thought she
she?
was she was in
Was she?
Yeah,
Delta. She
later.
was in Delta.
Later, I think.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, okay. Because in
Now
the
I know we
article,
know enough to know the difference. Now we know that that's not the same, right?
Yeah,
What?
like an honorary versus a.
Yeah, like that's not gang gang. Okay.
well, that's what I'm saying.
That's
So
play
she's
play.
not in the sorority. She doesn't get endorsed. She's complaining that she doesn't get endorsed by the National Council of Negro Women. So they're like these big things that she doesn't have. So in the South, it's going to be important that you have gone to HBCU. She doesn't have that. She doesn't have that connection. She don't have the fraternity, sorority, the Divine Nine connection. She doesn't have the the links, the not the links. What do you call the Jack and Jill? She doesn't have these other bourgeois thingies going on. And regardless of whether or not you agree, if you're being honest in terms of black politics in America, that shit matters.
Yeah,
It
it
do.
does. And there's some like I'm not even into politics like that, but I'm watching people move, in between, these different constituencies and power, these power through these power relationships. And I was looking at this. This is from 1983. And remember Walter Fauntleroy and how he was like, I don't know no Shirley Chisholm. Like, and we were like, now, is that because Shirley is a woman or is it? But I said, ooh, the way they portrayed Walter Fauntleroy doing Shirley Chisholm, I want him out of my book because he's in my book, right? And then I'm thinking about it and I'm like, what does this mean? That Walter Fauntleroy went to little old Atlanta Metro College that was not quite open when Shirley Chisholm was running. But I'm saying some of it is it could be model minority. I don't know Shirley Chisholm like that, and I didn't read Anastasia Kerwood's biography. I just listened to her book talk. But some of it could be, and I live in, come from, represent BK, New York City, the best in the world. If it's not Brooklyn, then New York City is the best city in the world. I don't need to know what's going down in Georgia and Alabama. Like that kind of also could come through. And I thought that there was so much going on with Shirley Chisholm that I'm like, this is so interesting. And I'm so glad that Regina King made this biopic, and so many people need to know about her. But the story is so complex to me.
I was just going to add her not having kids. That for a lot, I mean, she couldn't, but for a lot of people, that made her suspect. And it's unfortunate because back to, oh, is she a real woman? Does she have that role in life? You know, and having been a teacher was not enough, right? It was always like, oh, well, you know, you're not able to, so that must mean something about you. But that's it. That's all I was saying.
Yeah, I just think her life is complicated. And again, so we're coming on the end of our time. I want to go back to what we were talking about at the beginning and just me. So if I'm having to kind of look at things from an overall psychological perspective, if we do look at this divorce, you know, 1 month and several months later, you get married.
But he was fine. I'm sorry. I'll go give her a pass on getting married because I would have married him while I was still married to the first person. I would have been like, you know what? I'm about to break the law because you look good. So thank you very much.
I mean, he's gorgeous. I ain't gonna front. The man was fine. I'm not gonna front. The man was fine. I seen the picture. Man was fine. At the same time, if we gonna be honest and balanced.
Hold on. Because we just said her life is complicated, or everybody is complicated, and we get an hour and a half, a 2-hour biopic. We're not gonna get everything.
I agree, and I feel like we need to honestly explore. If we're talking about, if we were doing, which we haven't done, but if this was a biopic on some white man, we would tear him a new one. For that kind of,
well, he should be torn another one.
And so I think we have to have a balanced critique. I think it may. All I'm saying is with her is that it appears that it speaks to perhaps an integrity concern, where she's critiquing other people and saying they have integrity concerns. Y'all, everybody on this call know you don't divorce somebody and then several months later pop up and suddenly marry somebody else without.
But Your Honor, he was fine. I need to be judged on the facts of the case. You can't just apply it across the board.
Back to her being entirely possible. Her personality, like I'm gonna do what I want to do, right? So I like this man. Like it could have been a Corrie situation. Like, you know what? He looking good. I'm about to just slide on out of here, right?
Or it could have just been that they have worked together for years.
Did what she wanted to do.
It could have just been they worked together for years.
And he was looking good the whole time. So what I'm saying is this.
Once somebody was out the door, they sat down like, you know what?
Yeah.
Do this. It's entirely don't be screwing up your face.
Also, man, the only thing go ahead, Estee, but only thing I want to say is if that was a brother that had done that to a black woman, y'all would be mad right now.
I would like to go on record as saying that's true for
me. I
would be mad.
We would have good reason to be suspect.
And I'll be like, haters gonna hate. This is me and my fine, good-looking husband. And yes, have you met him? Okay, thank you. I would be like, I'll take the hate because I'm happy. That's what I would do. I'll be over here. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, Corrie.
This is
I wouldn't measure her up against a white man. I wouldn't do that. But I know I would be like, if it's another African American man, I might be like, but you know, people got their reasons. We don't know what was going on, you know.
I mean, and we don't.
Maybe she got tired of eating frozen dinners. I don't know.
I'm just putting it out there that we would critique this. So this is where our gender bias comes in, because if she was a man, we would be critiquing that, and particularly if that was a black man,
because of a history of what men have done. We would just continue. You say if he was a man, we critique it.
I don't think there's a great because we are talking about it and we have talked about it. You know what I mean? Like we started out talking about it. So I think for me it feels like, you know, if this was an hour on Martin, we wouldn't talk about the white women he was with for 20 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm okay with her getting married in the same year at the end of it. You know what I mean? At the end of it's like, well, it was what it was. You know what I'm saying? So I do feel like we named it. I said what I thought about it. So I think it is important because of the potential implication more so than what was actually going on. I think the movie does try to hint at that too, because even when we first get introduced to Arthur, there's this long hug at the door, and her husband is on the other side of the door. So it does kind of leave this nuance portrayal where you might assume that there was an integrity problem there.
Mm-hmm.
That's problematic, and it's problematic because what it means to be a Black woman public figure in 1977, you know, navigating that and how
72.
does that, you know, like how does that play out? But I don't think there's bias there because we've named it.
I really honestly think it's because people think Shirley Chisholm is not attractive. And I want to say, because I've heard that said by men primarily. Like, so the only thing that I heard about it was the implication that some kind of way they were involved in something. Like the whole thing was shady because why would he want to be with her in the first place? But I feel like that's one of the things that goes back to another kind of conversation. But anyway, maybe that was just me. But I would have been in a compromising position that all that stuff would have come out in the election and y'all would have known about it. Y'all be like, oh, she was obviously feeling him the whole time. And I'm like, yes, I was. Sorry. And an entanglement. It would have been.
Yeah.
You know, I take a.
I do
I
want
would
to say,
do a Trump thing like, yeah, I did it, and what? And
sorry. I think the other reason when we're talking about sexual politics, I think the other thing that causes this to stand out.
Go ahead, Estee.
Okay. I think the other thing that causes this to stand out is that she didn't have children. There is a particular way that we view women when they have relationships that could raise an eyebrow. Black women, and especially if they are not mothers, where we attribute them to certain types of archetypes and stereotypes. And I think that is where it really kind of shows us some of the problems in our social political landscape. So like it is it really saying something about Shirley, or is it saying that she spent years on the road with this man and her own marriage could have had its own challenges, and there may have been nothing, right? But it's because she looks a particular way. It's because she is not a mother. It's because of it happening in the same year. And I think all of that contributes to how we do debunk the respectability, which doesn't have any place when it comes to sexual politics, right? Like she has the right to use her sexual agency the way she wants to. And if we don't have any information, we can't make no assumptions.
And we don't know that it was sexual. We don't know nothing. I mean, we know that, like you said, in the year, but we don't know.
It's still pseudo-sexual because they're married, right? So it the politic of it is sexual.
Yeah. So I wanted to also say, I wanted us, before we run out of time, to address this issue of islands and island gender relationships and stuff like that. And I just want to say, so I'm a Southerner too, Nozibele, and I grew up with that, like that language around different Caribbean people, but I learned how myopic it could be from our perspective once I did study abroad in Jamaica. And again, it's a complex situation, and I just want to say, yes, on the ground, gender interactions were different than the ones I experienced in the United States, but also the Bahamas, Jamaica, they've all had females, women to occupy the top political posts in the country, and the United States is struggling around that. So I'm not exactly, I don't know. I just think it's a complex situation in terms of what a woman should do and where she should lead.
That's a good point. I never even thought about that. Yeah, that's a good point.
I hadn't thought about that either. The other thing I want to add as we're getting ready to wrap up are some of the undercurrents of faith and spirituality that we see that I think are very interesting, that I do think happen, particularly when we're talking about Afro-Caribbean or immigrant African Americans that are immigrants, because this whole idea of like, oh, I can go see George Wallace because he's a Christian, and I at least owe Ron Dillum's forgiveness. And I think
that was crazy.
These kinds of ways that spirituality, particularly from a Christian perspective, gets oversimplified in order to undergird other larger decisions that are being made, and in kind of almost similar to how it's advancing this, America is the promised land kind of thing. And so I really think those components of the story play a part, I think, into what seemed to be her decision making, what seemed to be really almost her paradigm around certain things. And I think that needs to be problematized.
Yeah. We are right out of time. We're over time now. I want to kind of give everybody a last word. Nozibele and Thandi, last words. One of the things that I learned by listening to an interview today, Estee, to your point, is that she was Quaker, which I was like, oh, okay, that's why she kind of had like a social justice lens. But I did think, just this idea of, I'm a Christian, so I'm going to go see George Wallace. It speaks to, in Jamile, why you said that we have to understand these politics and the cultural connections. Because although I am not a Southerner, I have one parent that comes from the South, and I was raised around Southerners. And so there's a way that I understood the importance of HBCUs. I understood the importance of a Black Southern politic. And if you understand that, if you come from that lady, and if she was listening to her advisors, I don't think that she would have ever made that decision, because that meant something to Black Southern people, that you would go and sit in the room of that man. And I don't think that she got that. And I think perhaps one, because she wasn't listening, because she was listening to she was being her own best counsel. But then I think it's also a result of not in that deep Southern understanding that comes from your ancestors specifically being enslaved in this country. That has nothing to do with ADOS perspective, because I don't agree with them at all. Mm-hmm. But Nozibele and Thandi, if you want to close us out, and then anybody else that has kind of closing comments.
Yeah, I think I'll just
again this trail. Oh, go ahead.
I'll let Thandi have the very last word. But I was kind of piggyback on what you're saying, Ifetayo, because even though we can have a whole thing on identity, right? Because identity is a complex thing. It's how we see ourselves, how other people see us, how we're socialized. And somebody can say, okay, I identify as African American, but if you are going to a church that is something unique to your culture, right? You're going to like a Caribbean Quaker church and not an African American church. You're going to have a different philosophy and a different worldview, right? So I think Shirley Chisholm, to just like veggie back on everything that everybody's saying, she's very complex. She's African American, she's African Ghanaian. She is an independent woman. She's a person who runs roughshod. She's a Northerner. So it's all of these things that went into her. And I think that having this little bit of time to kind of like talk about her is, we need a little bit more time to kind of like really talk about Shirley Chisholm, the woman, and not Shirley Chisholm, the movie or the short biopic, because just going through that process of her trying to get nominated, what happened really isn't enough for us to unpack the complex woman that she was.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely agreed. It was complex, and 2 hour, 90 minute. It's never going to do it. It's never going to be enough. But again, I believe that this was a reintroduction to the world, or to the community, to the streaming community, whoever. A reintroduction of Shirley Chisholm, bringing her back to the forefront again because of the impact that she made at the time that she did this. And it definitely does deserve not only another look, she deserves honor, she deserves praise, she does, and by extension, of course, critique. I think that the portrayal of her showed why she considered herself to be unbossed, which I appreciated, which I liked. But that move on what's his name? What was it? Oh, Forgiven Dellums and George. Absolutely not. No. But other than that, I had some other thoughts about her, but I can hold my tongue. I can hold my tongue.
I'll go next because I was thinking the same thing about her being unbought and unbossed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think complex and all, we all are complex.
Yeah.
And I think the ability to follow to follow your own convictions and to see them through, to fund them, to do the work that they require. As a Black woman in 1972 who had just gotten to Congress is unfathomable and incredibly courageous.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, I think it's really important that we have these conversations because, of course, they influence us now. It's like, as Njamila already pointed out, there are all types of ways that these kind of model minority tropes play a part in how we vote and how we make decisions and how we make community and how we live that out. And as a presidential election year of 2024, it's important for us to be in these conversations because what we have to stop doing is what they did to Shirley. And we continue to do that, where we will undermine each other because of preference, which is not nearly as critical as principle and policy. And so I think to see her story, of course, we have our reactions, but at the end of the day, Shirley was the GOAT. Hands down.
And I want to point something out really quick. I just did a conversion. I don't remember the exact amount of money that they raised. So at the beginning, they said she needed to raise at least $300,000 in order to run that campaign. That was a bare bones minimum. It's a 300,000. It was a little over 200,000. So I just did the conversion today. So that means that she raised, her future husband, raised a little over $1.4 million in 1972. That is huge. And we can't dismiss
without the
that.
support of Black male politicians, without the support of the Black caucus in Congress.
And without the support of the Divine Nine. Without the support of the white women, because she said, well, where are the white women?
The white women were not there.
And you sitting up here wondering why she married that man. Anyway.
Because he got her $1.4 million.
And was fine.
Another reason she went with bae number 2.
And was fine, Your Honor. Like, I'm sorry. I'm back to my original point.
Corrie hadn't even talked about the money. She just said he was fine, okay?
He didn't even he could have had 2 cents. Like 2 cents to rub together. I would have been like, yes, we get married.
He supported her and raised money. Okay.
I mean, here's the other thing I want to I want to add to. And she went back to Congress, right? I think the other thing that I want to name is like Black women and how we navigate defeat or how we navigate when things happen that don't go as planned. When we put our whole self, our whole thing, our whole pocketbook. She put her whole 36,000. First of all, she had 36, and then she put it in the campaign, and they took her delegates overnight. You know what I'm saying? Like she put all of it on the line, and it didn't work, and she went back to Congress and stayed in Congress for I think maybe 6 more elections or something like that. Definitely 4 or 5 more. I need to check the years, but my point is, like, she really was about that life. What she was committed to, what her principles were, she lived into that. You can't beat that.
One more conversion. I'm gonna let you go, Dr. McCray. $36,000 in today's money. That is $232,994 that she had in her bank account. That she had in her bank account. Now I don't know about y'all, how y'all bank accounts are set up. I can tell you.
You don't have to even mention us. It ain't about us. It's about Shirley Chisholm.
Oh, get her.
Exactly.
Get her into me, like, get her.
Exactly.
She started off.
Let me stop you right there.
And I'm here for the cause, but if I got 200 in the bank, it's not all going in this campaign.
She started out like their age.
I would be like, okay, so if we invest 50.
Look here, I'm gonna do a Donald Trump. I'm gonna act like I'm gonna put money in there, but I ain't gonna do it. And then I'm gonna lie about it. I'll be like, oh, well, why y'all just give me the money? How about that?
Exactly. Like,
and you ain't gonna have no drug out trials like this. They gonna put you under the jail immediately, Corrie.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm just inspired. I just realized that's another way you can run this. Why put money in there? You can just lie about how much money you have, and then just do what you gotta do.
And then, like I said, I talk about me. I can tell you the way my bank account is set up right now. If somebody needed $200,000 from me, that check gonna bounce.
Listen,
right now,
because he brought her the checkbook. That's the other part. It wasn't like, I have the money in theory. I'm gonna have the money when they pay me my congressional salary in August when session comes. He said, "Here go your checkbook. Here go your pen." Yeah, she a better woman than me, because y'all wouldn't have got. I'd be unbought at the house.
Yeah, I was thinking about running, but no.
But you know,
I'm like, ooh, these prices is high.
So yeah,
one thing I want to say, I know we. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I don't have anything to add that Estee and all others have not said. I just agree. These are important issues to parse through, especially since it's an election year again for the presidency and the vice presidency. And to underscore what other people have said, Shirley Chisholm, if she was nothing, she was committed and real. And I think without her, we wouldn't have even known, right? What might have made a Barack Obama or a Kamala Harris more appealing to us, right? Barack Obama, we never stopped talking about him having a real Black wife. And Kamala Harris being, this is not me, this is my cousin, a red bone, aka from our university. They could never, that's what they said, and they could never stop saying that. And so in that sense, like, her skin tone wasn't her otherness or whatever. It was, we know you, we recognize you. When the AKA and the Howard University came up, then we're like, oh, she just red bone.
Well, and so I think we don't have time to talk about this. We do not have time to talk about this, but I think it would be an interesting conversation to do kind of a comparison of Kamala Harris now as vice president versus someone like a Shirley Chisholm. Because I can't even imagine Kamala Harris even coming from California if the Black Panther Party was still in existence today and had the power that it did. I can't even imagine her meeting with Huey and seeing that type of endorsement, because I think she's a different politician than Shirley Chisholm was. So I think it's interesting that Shirley Chisholm is the one that paved the way. And actually, when you think about it, so when you think about Shirley Chisholm, Barack, and Kamala, all three of them, none of them have African American parents. Interesting.
But that's one of the things ADOS keep bringing up. That's why I was like, we have to say, we got to address that, because that's one of the things that they were bringing up. Like, at what point is the person who has immigrant parents, or who they all have at least one immigrant parent, right? Is
None of them have
at what point is that person,
parent.
right? At what point are they more appealing on a national level than as Nozibele says, the regular Black people? That's what they said. So,
and that's interesting, because I wonder, then does that, okay, I know we got to stop, but then does that lend to this idea that there are things that politician may lean into or compromise, that someone that has deep Southern roots is like, hell no, we're not doing that?
Absolutely, because I mean, let's be for real, right? Like, we don't trust them for real. Like, and I think for people who are from the Deep South, who have particular African American embedded experiences, we have distrust for these political figures for the same reason. I will not tell y'all the ungodly things that was happening at our Thanksgiving table when Barack was running for president.
Ungodly.
Because my family don't care, right? You know what I'm saying? But because this is our real lives, right? Now, at the end of the day, he a Black man, we gonna vote for him. But I'm not so sure, right? I have very strong convictions about Kamala, and I think Kamala's record in California reinforces my suspicions. Even did y'all see the interview the other day with her and Drew Barrymore, where Drew Barrymore told her she needed to be mamala for the country, and she just sat down and was like, that Black woman from below the Mason-Dixon line, that gonna sit up on this white woman's talk show and let her ask her to be the mammy for the country, and she not gonna have nothing to say. She just
none.
Also, they're not they're not where she is, because Patti LaBelle wouldn't let it happen, and Amanda Seals, and she has the one, but she wouldn't let it happen. Who?
And I think there's a way, which is what I'm saying. Like, I think there's a way to sit in the seat that Kamala sits in, and still Michelle would have handled that differently. I think there's a way to do both things, but that's not who Kamala is. That's not who Kamala is, and we know that.
I think so. It's interesting you say that, because I mean, I voted for Obama, of course, in 2008. I voted for him the first time, but one thing that I had very clear. I was clear that why I was voting for him and who he was. I wasn't confused about that, because one of the things that I knew, even though I didn't grow up in the church, but because I have Black parents, and like I said, one from the South, I knew that anybody that would turn on their pastor, something wrong with them.
And they ain't right.
I know
Black has shifted
publicly
Obama's relationship with much of Black America. And I think the way that Michelle doubled down on their relationship with Reverend Dr. Jeremiah Wright in her book, I think there are all these ways that how they have shown up has shifted how Black America experiences and trusts them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, honey, after that book, I was already lukewarm on her ass. After that book, I was like, it's confirmed. I don't like you now.
But I'm telling you, my auntie called it in Thanksgiving of 2008.
And on that note,
that's a private conversation. Y'all not supposed to say that stuff publicly. We all supposed to love Michelle
and on
Obama.
that note,
My auntie called it, and she was correct. She called it.
She sat up there. Now we could. It's too late, but now you done pissed me off. I gotta say this. She sat up there and talked about her uncle who had been Pullman Porter, and talked about him being angry all the time. And she know darn went to Princeton, right? Or was that one of them Ivy League schools? She know the history of Pullman Porters and what that man had to go through. And is she gonna compare Jeremiah Wright to her uncle being a Pullman Porter? I was like, girl, I know you. You the one that I would see at work and be like, I don't trust her ass. Don't tell her shit because all that shit gonna go back to them.
She the other black
and she eating your food out the refrigerator.
Your chances of
eating your
getting
food
your
out the refrigerator.
You said what about the refrigerator?
I said, and she eating your lunch out the refrigerator.
She don't eat. Bye, y'all.
Okay, look at Corrie. Corrie, scratching her head and being silent. Okay. She's like, y'all wrong. That's what, hey.
We're just trying to make sure Morehouse ain't burned down when Joe Biden comes to speak at commencement. So we'll just talk about that later. All right, bye.
Anyway, okay, y'all. So I guess we should stop. No, but I think that you know what? I think we need to have a whole conversation. It don't have to be on her, but I do think we have to have a conversation on those people that you just can't trust. They may look like you, but they not for you. I'm sorry. And the things like you talking about your family, writing it in books, betraying your pastor.
That's Nova. That was Nova on Queen Sugar.
Queen Sugar.
Okay, bye, y'all.
Yeah, let's not start another one. Come on.
And after that, we stopped with Nova 2.
Okay, come on. Can we cut now?
We was out here for Nova.
Okay. On that note,
y'all she knew better. That's not how you do that. That's not how you do that.
As a reminder.
We said the quiet part out loud today.
I did. As a reminder, we do this every Friday. Not every Friday.
We cut up every Friday.
Friday. We cut up. I get on here and say stuff that I shouldn't. Maybe because I work for myself.
Oh God.
But it is what it is. And so I hope you will, if you are watching the recording afterwards, please, because I know that people do it. I have been in Paris and people have asked me stuff. I got friends from Portugal and all over the world, from Guyana, that will be like, hey, you know what? I did you live, but I watched it. So please make sure that you share this, like it, comment. Those things help the algorithm so we can get this out there on the universe. Again, I want to just say thank you to my colleagues, Dr. Kenja McCray, Professor Nozibele Waithe, journalist Thandisizwe Chimurenga, Professor Dr. Corrie Claiborne, and Reverend Estee Nena Dillard. So I will hope to see you next month. Take care, y'all.